was Motherland and How Are You? And now I would like the filmmakers to introduce themselves, please. So please state your name and the role on your films.
My name is Hao Are You. I'm the artist ANOTHER NGUYEN. I wrote the song Motherland, and then I worked together with these two to make a music video for it.
My name is Minh, and I'm the director of Motherland.
I'm Minh, and I did the camera and editing for the music video.
Hi, my name is Hao. I'm the guy in the blue, and I was the director, writer, and I did some other things also in the movie, as you saw. Yeah. Thank you.
I wanted to go first to our musical artist from our first film. What inspired you to write that song?
So I grew up in a very, very small town in Germany where we were 1,000 people in total and 2 Vietnamese families. And every school I went to, I was the only Vietnamese. And at the time, I really rejected everything that had to do with being different than being white and German. So I was really embarrassed about being a foreigner, and I refused to speak Vietnamese to my parents because I just wanted to integrate and adapt. And when I was 19, 20, something inside of me felt like there was a void, something was missing, I don't know. And at that point, I decided that I wanted to go to Vietnam. And I spent a year volunteering there. And in that year, I learned Vietnamese, and really my perspective started to shift 180 degrees. And I realized what a treasure it's been to have 2 different backgrounds and to have this family history. And from then on, for the next 10 years, I feel like I've been in this whole process of trying to uncover my identity, how much German, how much Vietnamese, how much internationalism is in me. And yeah, that song came to me, and it was a process over a couple of years, trying to capture all these different emotions that always come and go whenever I travel to Vietnam, whenever I'm away from it for a couple of years and come back, and so on.
Thank you. How? When people have a camera in front of their face, sometimes they behave differently. Did you get the sense that the camera during the entirety of your documentary impacted at all how your family members behaved and what they revealed to you?
That's exactly what I wanted to say. Obviously, for each and every family member, it was different. For example, my uncle in Hong Kong, he didn't even realize we were filming, as well as my aunt in Los Angeles. So, very, very helpful for a documentary filmmaker when the protagonists don't even realize there's a camera. It's very, very helpful. On the other hand, my aunt on the other end in Los Angeles was very protective. So there was a lot of negotiation beforehand going on that she didn't want to be in the film in the first place. But I convinced her, also due to the help of my cousin. And then she opened up for 2 days, and after we finished filming, also she closed the door, and it's funny because none of them ever asked me after we finished filming what happened to the movie. It's really interesting. It's rather the second generation who asks, or the third generation of my family.
Thank you, Hao. For our Motherland filmmakers, how did you come to collaborate with ANOTHER NGUYEN, and what was your experience like with the Dieu Hao Do film project?
So actually, Dieu Hao Do, the project that was the frame of the whole process, is something that Ngọc Anh and Đức and his wife, Đức is also somewhere here in the audience. Right, that they founded just to support, Vietnamese-German filmmakers, because it's quite hard in Germany as someone with an Asian background to kind of establish themselves. And so that's kind of how we came together a few years ago. And then they kind of established that and continued that, and Motherland was one of those projects. Yeah.
Minh, did you want to add on to that?
Yeah, maybe for those people that don't know what Drehs is, or like translated turning around, it means basically turning the camera to ourselves to tell Vietnamese stories by Vietnamese people, with Vietnamese people front and behind the camera. And it's like a workshop for young people, young Vietnamese-German people to get into documentary making and the whole process from getting to know each other to researching, interviewing, the whole production process, camera, post-production. This is all what you can learn in the workshop. And we met Ngọc Anh first as a social worker, because I mean documentary process also needs like this protective space of how do we handle the social connections. And it's the third year now, and in the third year we did the music video, and we traveled to Vietnam for that with a couple of people from the years before, or selected people, and and then we shot Motherland together.
Thank you both. Hao, I believe How Are You won the First Steps Award for Best Documentary Filmmaking over in Germany, which is, in Germany at least, a very prestigious award. I'm very curious, has there been a difference between the reaction between, let's say, white German audiences and, say, a Vietnamese diasporic or a Chinese diasporic crowd to your film?
Well, I learned that we all have a family, and once you dig really deep in the family history, people connect. It's just a very universal theme, and which I didn't expect in the beginning, because when I was in the editing process, and it took quite some time to edit this film, I thought, who's going to watch a film about a Chinese minority from Vietnam? Nobody's going to care about it. And when I picture locked it and I released it, the responses were, yeah, I have a family like that. It was either an older white woman in the audience, or a young Vietnamese person, or I didn't actually speak to so many Chinese people because just the Vietnamese-Chinese experience doesn't. I don't meet that many people in Germany, honestly, but probably that is the answer. So a lot of people can connect, really, and I'm really, really grateful for that.
Indeed. I also wanted to issue a point of clarification about your film, How. Near the end, of course, the dramatic climax is the fight between your mother and the two siblings, and the camera goes off. Do you want to go a little into that?
Yeah, it's interesting to see this moment in the audience, the reaction of it, because I think people think it's a trick, but it actually went off in that very moment, and we didn't know, because obviously it was so intense. And after we finished the shooting, I think 15 minutes later, we went to the house of my uncle. And my cinematographer, Florian, he realized he wasn't filming. And I got super mad, because I felt, oh, we missed like the most dramatic point in this whole journey. I didn't like plan it, but it was there, and it wasn't there. So he didn't have it on camera. And I remember there was a little plastic chair, and I kicked the plastic chair, and my aunt, she didn't understand German. She was like, what is he doing? Why is he so mad? And Florian, my cinematographer, he started crying because he felt that he had failed as a cinematographer. And I told myself, oh, come on, Hao, this can't be this. This whole thing cannot lead to the fact that the cinematographer is crying. And I told him, I went up to him and I put my hand on his chest, and I said, don't worry. I will find a way to tell it, and I think it's much better this way. Yeah.
It's a moment of serendipity. I think it helps dramatically that moment.
Yeah, I'm really happy that there are no pictures actually.
Okay, turning to the Motherland team before, I think a few more questions before I turn to you, the audience. How much VHS tape did you have to comb through, and how did you decide what to put into the film?
That's a funny question. I think it was maybe 4 or 5 cassettes with each maybe 2 hours of footage. I don't know. I just remembered that my dad always kept these cassettes, and as we were preparing our trip to go to Vietnam, I just knew we have to get them. And then it was me and Hien who had to go through all of that footage, and they spent a lot of time watching it. How did you decide on what to use?
Yes, it was actually quite a fun and very intimate experience to be looking at like such private VHS material, because I think for me personally, I don't even have it anymore, like from my own childhood, and just watching Ngọc Anh's childhood, like before she even saw it herself, I think, right? With me together, I think it was very intimate and then a very emotional experience as well. And the way that we decided on the material to choose was just, we kind of wanted to have a documentary aspect in it, and so we picked scenes that were like telling the story, and we just picked the strongest moments or the moments that we felt like fit the theme of Motherland, or like the themes, I think, the conflict between like growing up in Germany and being Vietnamese. So we picked scenes that fit the theme a lot, and I guess also just went with like our own what do you call that? Like our own intuition. Yeah, with our own intuition, which scenes to choose.
Me, do you have a comment? No? Okay. One final question for the entire group before I turn it over to the audience. German filmmakers all. There were 7 total German films, 6 shorts and 1 feature here at Viet Film Fest this year. And for those who do not know, that smashed the national record for Germany. Germany has had at most 2 films at a single edition of Viet Film Fest before this. And this year, it's not just Dries who contributed. There were others like Hao as well who contributed to that number. And I'm wondering, is the German Vietnamese artistic community, it doesn't necessarily have to be film, is it coming together and understanding that together they can build a platform for each other, and is that what is driving things right now, do you feel? Anybody can answer this question.
For me, I can say I moved to Berlin 12 years ago, coming from that small town, really trying to seek for a Vietnamese-German community. And I remember that at the time, there was very little to be found, which is why actually I was very inspired to come to the US in 2015-16, because I wanted to learn about the Asian American community. I found out about Wong Fu Productions, JK Films and stuff like that on YouTube, learning that there's so many creatives here, and I was missing that in Germany at the time. And then when I came back though, and I started studying music, and I was kind of like in that world of just figuring that out, I saw very clearly how around 2018 there seemed to be a shift and a lot of grassroots projects popping up, podcasts and Instagram accounts where a lot of Vietnamese-German artists are starting to connect and realize that we exist. And at the time, you know, there was BAFNet, Berlin Asian Film Network, that was like a small platform, but I think really Hao contributed a lot to growing that community, and there's more and more of us to the point where I'm surprised that there are so many of us now.
Yeah, I could just add on that. I think we've somehow reached sort of a tipping point, and I think it is you can look at it from a systemic or structural perspective, but also there are people like Dirk and Nhok Ayen and Dirk's wife, Sarah Noor, and sometimes it just takes a few people who are generous and think bigger in the bigger picture, and this helps so much for the community. And I also feel it's also very, very empowering. Yesterday in the morning, we saw just the whole experience here is very, very empowering. It's always the question, what can we learn from each other and how can we build bridges and solidarity? and learn from each other. And I think, yeah, I think that basically sums it up.
I personally hope there's a lot more to come from the Vietnamese-German community in the years to follow. By the way, Germany, with your 7 films, that beat out everybody except for the United States and Vietnam. France only had 6. So if you were, if you were worried about that. And now, if I may have my microphone runner help me here, I would like all of you folks to ask some questions. I will recognize anybody who raises their hand. Don't be shy, right there.
Hello. So I'm an American, and I'm half Chinese and half white, and yeah, I can relate to a lot of things in this film. I'm speaking to Hao. So this is I have a question for you. So I think I'm curious. Just how do you, when you think of after the events that happened in the film now, do you think of your family as or I'm just wondering, in what ways do you think of everything now? I think that one way, as in the ending of the film, is like it's almost like a spectacle and something that you can kind of step away from and realize that you have your own future ahead of you. But I'm wondering if there are what other ways you might look at your family now after these events. Thanks.
I will answer this question, but also my cousin, once removed, Aaron, is in the audience. I would also would love to hear his opinion on that, because also part of the family. I don't look at it differently, but I would say before I started this journey or this film, it was, in German we say vacuum. How do you say vacuum in English? Vacuum? Yeah, it sounds kind of weird, but it sounds like vacuum cleaner. But it was like looking at the past of the last, let's say, 50 or 70 years of my family, there was just blank. And I think even though it's now making this film, it's such a mess, it's such a chaos. There's a certainty in the chaos, I would say. It sounds kind of philosophical, I don't know. I have a certainty that I can acknowledge that it's a chaos. And I think it helps a lot to, maybe I said reconciliation is not the right word, but maybe it is a process of reconciliation, that there's a certain kind of acknowledgement of how it is, and I can let go of it. I cannot speak for my aunts and uncles and my mother, but I think that for me it was that process, but I think we really have to ask my aunts and uncles. I cannot answer that question. Did I answer your question?
Oh, just a follow-up. I'm also curious about, or I guess specifically too, like, it's interesting that at least for me, it's like the people that there is like there's always some sort of thing going on from people who are older than you within your family, and it's interesting to see how they act, and then also know that because of their actions in the past, you can do what you can do, like that you have the opportunities which you have in front of you then. And so I was just I'm wondering like how you manage to connect that, like that there are so many overarching things happening within your life and your family, and then there's what you do now, and like how they work off.
Yeah, I wonder if the way it connects, or I'm not even sure if I think I tried for a long time to look for the right narrative, or to try to connect something that was not able to connect, and I think I changed my perspective on the word connection. Maybe I think it's hard to describe, but I think it's the best. You've seen the film and you know how it feels. You feel all the ruptures and like this whole. It felt when I edited it, it felt like I'm trying to look. I'm trying to find a sculpture. I'm sculpturing something. I'm trying to find a form for it, and it took many times, and I failed many times. And in the end, this is it. And if you see a connection between it, fine. If you see fragments, that's also fine. I think this is what the film can offer.
Any other questions from the audience? You'll be next.
Hi, I have should I stand now? I have one comment and a question. First comment is for Another Nguyen. Your music video really healed my inner child, so thank you for showing that. Really brought me a lot of joy to see the joy that was present in reconnecting with your motherland. So, fun fact, my name is also Hao, but spelled with a U. And so that's actually what compelled me to come watch this movie, a very superficial reason. But my question to you is really around the subtitling. So I thought it was really interesting because, I mean, I'm full Vietnamese. I'm a little familiar with Cantonese because my ex was Viet Chinese. And obviously English is my best language. But I noticed there were some discrepancies, and the decision to not put the punchline of the movie title in the subtitle was interesting. So I wanted to, like, when I think it was your mother who said why your name is Hao, and then the subtitle didn't say How Are You. So I was wondering if that was intentional, if there was any thought behind that.
I have to ask, what is the meaning of discrepancies?
Oh, differences.
Differences.
Differences
Ah.
in the actual. What
Yeah.
you're saying and
I think it was a very interesting process with the subtitle because there's Cantonese and there's Vietnamese and there's Dieu Hao, and most of them they speak quite fast, right? So at some point, but it was already early in my films, I saw subtitles. I mean, there are subtitles, there are information, but also there is some kind of rhythm and orientation. So, and because they speak so fast, at some points, I had to make sure that you as an audience, you're able to follow what's there and what I wanted to tell, and it was more of a tangle between image and the text. But not always, but I think I stuck very much to the original idea of subtitling, but sometimes I felt it's better for you as an audience, it's necessary, and it became a little bit of an artistic choice, but I don't want to blow it up, it's subtitles in the end, you know. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Elaine, microphone down here. You had a question, right?
I have also one question, one comment and a question. So, your film, How, truly stretched my mental limit for this moment. I know Vietnamese, I'm familiar with Cantonese because of my family, because I'm also Chinese Vietnamese. And then I recognize enough German, so my translating brain is just kind of like, I don't know what language to follow. So thank you for that morning exercise, like lay ho.
Yeah, I'm really glad we watched it in the morning. It's if you have an evening screening, it's yeah.
Burning out, yeah. I think my question, because I come from a very similar background in here, is for your family, how did they kind of navigate also Vietnamese culture? Because there's a line in your film about how, as a persecuted minority, that strengthened their Chinese identity because that's how they were able to communicate with their neighbors. They were fellow Chinese people, and that is the one true thread that they have together if they don't have familial love. But obviously they also live in Vietnam, and they had to, especially when you were traveling to Vietnam, had to acquaint themselves with that culture. So kind of how was that experience?
I hope I understand the question correctly. I think what's interesting is my uncle in Vietnam, who has not left the country, behaves very differently to all the other people who either fled due to gambling debts or went into the diaspora. And it's true that they hold very strongly to their Chinese identity. And in German, sometimes I would describe it as a time capsule. Like, the culture is not dynamic. Like, they left the country, and that Chinese culture that they brought with them is stuck in time. So that it's even stronger, right? So they are more conservative. My mother was very strong in keeping the Chinese values, and I always ask myself, she keeps saying, "You're Chinese, Chinese," and I was a German Chinese boy. What does it mean to be Chinese in Germany as a kid and as a teenager? So that is one perspective to look at it. And the second question is really interesting in terms of their connection to the Vietnamese culture, because I think it's the first time I hear it. So the way you describe it, it's a really interesting question. I've never really thought about it, how to describe it, and I think this whole process is about finding words to the experience and to the emotion. And I'm gonna have a first attempt, I guess. It's an interesting mix because I grew up with Vietnamese culture, and Vietnamese language was always, I don't understand Vietnamese, but it sounds like music to me, because my best friend is Vietnamese, and my parents, they spend time having food and singing karaoke with Vietnamese people, with the Vietnamese families in our small hometown. But at the same time, they are, I would say, as Chinese people, they're quite racist towards Vietnamese people. This is also what I learned in the process, and this is also what I had to acknowledge, that they were not only, how do you say, Täter? Victims, but also, what's the opposite of victims? Perpetrators in a way, yeah. And I think that I had to acknowledge that complexity, yeah.
One question right there.
That's just also for you.
Comes
It's
the
also
microphone.
it's also a comment. I'm thinking of historical trauma. At one point you say your family, there's the strong and the weak, and then I think you're the child of what you will see as a strong one. My question is about the first generations. The word responsibility comes a lot, like blaming each other, right? Non-stop and cannot let go. This is documentaries from your voice, right? So I'm interested in you and what you bring to the table. And I think you don't function the same way, right? I mean, your cousins say they don't want children, right? They want to stop the cycle of brutality, right? It's so harsh. But for you, your voice doesn't carry that harshness. You're a listener, you have empathy. When I hear your voice, I see a path toward hope to break that silence because of who you are. So thinking about historical trauma, I'm thinking like, how do you get there? Like for those who can relate to this family dynamic, and I think a lot of us kind of we get that, right? Blaming, and you kind of middle and you cannot speak, but yet you still found that voice. How did you get here? Maybe that will help others, to find that hope to break this cycle of violence.
Well, first of all, thank you for the compliment that my voice seems to sound soothing. And to be honest, the what you said about the strong and the weak, really honestly, after finishing the film, this is the only sentence that I regret putting in the film. Like, I feel like, when looking at it today, I shouldn't have said that, because it can be misinterpreted. Back then I had a different point of view on that. But your question is a big question. I'm not sure how I can answer it. I was talking to one of the journalists from Viet Bao, and I described the process somehow as something that is historical and political, and it becomes, at some point, without really deciding on that, it becomes a spiritual process somehow. And maybe in acknowledging and working through all of these layers, I mean, obviously I was trying to understand trauma from 7 people and working through all of the emotions. And I had a lot of weight. I put a lot of weight on myself during that process. I really have to say. And I guess it's always a good advice to chill and to let go of things, especially when we think we need them the most. because I think it's somehow that we try to control something that we are not supposed to control in the first place. And that took me a long time to understand. And maybe that changed my voice, I don't know.
Before the final audience question.
I'd actually like to say something about that too, because I can relate to that feeling of feeling this weight on my shoulders. I felt like there was this invisible backpack that I was carrying around. And to me, it was about acknowledging that it's there and allowing myself to seek for answers when I have the energy to do that. But then also, and I know that a lot of times it was perceived as selfish from my parents, that I was going to Vietnam for a whole year, because they were like, you have to take care of your siblings. Why are you going there? Why aren't you going to a university? But I knew I have to do this for myself, do something that makes me feel strong, that empowers my intuition, that makes me happy to make new friends. Because from building that energy of doing something that brings me joy, I felt that I had space to see them more as people and not just as the parents that didn't take care of me. And it was me going to the US and learning about other communities, and then through kind of healing my inner child, through finding happiness in different moments and environments, that I'm slowly unknotting this complicated thing that's racism, classism, feminism, or whatsoever. And I think there's moments where I don't look at my family issues and I'm really like, I can't handle it, it's too much. But then I always come back to it, and to not pressure myself that healing has to happen in a certain amount of time. But somehow I've seen now in the last 10 years that it was so worth it seeking for these answers, because now I get to share whatever I went through with the kids from Dres talk to you here on this stage, that I realize these selfish moments of going away and doing something that empowers me, myself, individually, actually also helps a larger community and my family.
Thank you. Final question.
Hello. Hi, my name is Vung. So I actually got 2 questions, but I'll try to make it really fast. First comment is, thank you, Hao, for your movie, and thank you for everything you went through in making it. And
You're welcome.
we can definitely relate in the audience with our family struggles to share our family tree. For Motherland, I wasn't expecting it to hit me hard, but I think growing up, we had to identify our Vietnamese roots, and kind of like, I went through that as well. My little brother's half Vietnamese, so he's kind of going through that identity crisis as well, and he's 14. Question number 1. So for the German Vietnamese community, or Asian American community, we in the United States have VSAs through our colleges and scouts and organizations. Do you guys feel like Europeans, Vietnamese, have a space to enrich themselves with the heritage and culture? And question number 2, what can you say for someone who is struggling with their Vietnamese identity, especially children who are half Vietnamese and want to distance themselves from that or want to get familiar with it?
Do you want, yeah.
Anybody but go. I'm sorry?
I need to catch a plane, I'm so sorry.
How needs to get on the plane?
But-
I'm very sorry.
Yeah,
but-
I'm so sorry, I need to go to the airport very soon.
This man has to get to the Chicago Marathon tomorrow morning. So, isn't that amazing?
He literally has to run?
No, I'm not running. But I have to go to Chicago. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm
We scheduled it at 10 a.m. because he had to get to the Chicago Marathon tomorrow morning.
But let's not, this is much more important than the Chicago Marathon. We should
I
answer
know.
that question, yeah.
Answer the question.
Yeah.
I think there's starting to be a couple of outlets for Vietnamese Germans to, find that, but it's only in Berlin, I would say. Some other larger cities might have like a Vietnamese cultural institution where you learn how to dance, maybe learn a little bit of Vietnamese, but like the political way of reflecting on it and also the positioning of what does it mean to be Vietnamese in Germany. I really only see that happening in Berlin right now. And to me, it feels like Dres and the Berlin Asian Film Network are those platforms where you get together, you meet others, you exchange, and where that really helps, you know, to reflect on all of that. And when it comes to, do I have advice for people struggling with their identity? I would say it's finding others, you know, who go through something similar like that and just talking about things. And I don't know, yeah, I would start by just going to different events that have anything to do with that. And yeah.
I think we'll leave it there. Thank you for coming out this morning, now midday. Viet Film Fest continues through Sunday, and we also continue virtually, online, at home, through Sunday, October the 20th. Again, if you would like to donate, please do so at our box office out there. Thank you for coming out, and one more round of applause for these guys.